Before that, I did want to talk about the breaking news of the day, and that is the what looks like the apparent suicide of Jeffrey Epstein. And I mean, there's not a lot that I want to say about this. One thing I'll say is that it's real tragedy that he was allowed to commit suicide. This is a man who's accused of such a degree of evil and over so many years that this should have made it into court. He should have had his day in court. His accusers should have had their day in court. And that would have allowed us possibly to get to the bottom of this, to get his accomplices, to get the scope and the extent of what this really monster did for the last 30 years. I think the fact that he will not be in court has kind of denied his victims that day in justice, and I think will ultimately deny all of us the knowledge that I think is central to preventing others from doing what he did and preventing people who might be affiliated with him from prevent them from actually getting the justice they deserve. So it's going to be really interesting to see if prosecutors, continue going after the different people involved here, whether it was the woman who procured girls for him, or whether it's his friends who participated in a lot of things, the very powerful, politically powerful, often wealthy individuals in his circle that participated in the rape, the sexual assault on girls, on underage girls, and whether those people are prosecuted. I mean, that's what is required now. That's what should be demanded now, and that's what's unlikely to happen. Of course, the real tragedy here is that we haven't had the opportunity to put pressure on Jeffrey Epstein to reveal everything that happened. Now, I don't know if he would have talked, but I think he would have given, well, let's assume he committed suicide for a moment. Given him committing suicide, he was obviously in a very precarious mental state. One assumes that interrogators could have ultimately broken him and could have ultimately got him, and I don't mean through torture, but could have broken him psychologically, or he would have broken psychologically, and revealed what actually happened and all the people that are involved. Now, so I would have liked to see him rot in jail for a very, 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 very long time, for the rest of his life, basically. I'd like to see him having to spend the rest of his life in jail and die in jail of natural causes. I think this was too easy for him, and I think we didn't get the full justice that I think the victims deserve because of his suicide. And of course, again, we'll never know the full extent of what he did unless prosecutors continue and pursue this. Now, of course, the first response to all of this were the conspiracy theories. Now, I have to say, given the fact that just yesterday a bunch of documents was released by the courts revealing the kind of people that are being accused by Epstein's victims as having participated in the rape and assault, high-level political figures, primarily in the Democratic Party, wealthy people, powerful people. These are people who, these are people who have a lot of political power, a lot of political pull, people across the political spectrum, primarily in this particular release of information, Democrats, but who knows what else? Who knows who else? And there's still many testimonies and Democrats and testimonies and documents yet to be released, and we will see how wide it is based on those documents, assuming that the civil cases continue, and hopefully they do, against the estate of Jeffrey Epstein. There's a lot of money there. So I assume they will continue to go after that money. And a day after that is released, naming a former governor, naming a very powerful former senator, naming very powerful politicians, very powerful Democratic politicians. That conspiracy, it's very convenient, one would say, that Jeffrey Epstein happens to commit suicide the next day. So this is obvious material for conspiracy theory, right? And it's tempting, and I'm tempted by the idea that probably both Democrats and Republicans wanted him dead. And is it possible that they killed him? By the way, he wasn't on suicide watch. He was released from suicide watch. And one of the questions is, why was he released from suicide watch when 2 weeks ago it was discovered that he had choke marks on his neck, and it wasn't clear if it was an assault or whether he had tried to commit suicide. So he was put on suicide watch, he was taken off of just very recently, and then he committed suicide. So yeah, you can see why they would be, conspiracy theories. Why there would be the assumption that powerful people had him killed, had him murdered. Now, if they did, I don't think they're going to get away with it. I mean, the FBI is investigating, the district attorney of the state of New York is investigating, a district attorney that was independent enough to go and arrest Jeffrey Epstein in spite of all his political connection. If you believe that it was the Clintons who did it, which is the prevalent conspiracy theory, then a Trump Justice Department has every incentive to find that. If you believe, as I believe, that both political parties had an incentive to knock him off, then yeah, maybe they shut enough people out. But the Attorney General who prosecuted him was independent enough and courageous enough to go after him, knowing all these political connections. So one would have to believe that this will come out if indeed he was murdered and did not commit suicide. But yeah, I mean, this is as close as it comes to a conspiracy that kind of seems, doable, right? It kind of seems like you've got enough people who have the interest to do it. Including, by the way, Trump, who information has come out over the last couple of weeks that he was very close to Jeffrey Epstein, at least in the 90s and in the early 2000s. So who knows? Who knows? No evidence and no suspicion about him doing anything bad, but they were close. They would party together. By the way, the revelations yesterday were super disgusting. I mean, of all kinds of people, a Nobel Prize winner in economics, who kind of was the pioneers of artificial intelligence, the politicians, wealthy individuals, all accused of, having sex with underage girls, arranged for by Epstein. Now, some of those, it could be false accusations, and we'll see how much corroborating evidence there is around these things. But God, I mean, you got to believe that some of this happened, whether these particular people or other particular people. And I don't want to name names because, again, these are just accusations. We still assume people are innocent until proven guilty. But the extent of the accusations, the specificity of the accusations, the scope of them, and all of that suggests that something horrific, something on a grand scale happened here, and that a lot of very powerful, very famous people were involved. And it's just horrific. Now, I have to say this because I'm about facts, in spite of those of you who resent me for attacking Donald Trump. Donald Trump retweets today. Retweets. I don't know what time exactly, but retweets. Unless he has some evidence from the Justice Department, I doubt it, that there is a conspiracy here. Donald Trump retweets the following tweet. died of suicide on 24/7 suicide watch, question mark? Yeah, right. How does that happen? Jeffrey Epstein had information on Bill Clinton, and now he's dead. I see Trump body count trending, but we know who did this. Retweet if you're not surprised. So Donald Trump, let me remind you, the President of the United States, not Donald Trump, I don't know, the entrepreneur, the playboy, the cavota with porn stars. Donald Trump, the President of the United States, with the presidential Twitter account, retweets a tweet basically accusing Bill Clinton or the Clintons of murdering Jeffrey Epstein. Now, it might turn out that they did. I doubt it, but it might turn out that they did. But he doesn't know that. And this idea of reinforcing conspiracy theories, by the way, his next tweet was going after fake news media. This is a president who retweets conspiracy theories unbased, unfounded on anything, and then complains about a media that is involved in fake news. All right, now remember, we should be surprised. This is the president who was at the lead of the birther conspiracy theory, the idea that Obama wasn't born in the United States, complete ludicrous, and yet he led this, and that didn't stop him being elected president of the United States. That, in and of itself, should have disqualified him from the presidency in the minds of voters, but it didn't, and now he's retweeting conspiracy theories about Bill Clinton, or the Clinton Mafia, whatever you want to call it, murdering somebody in a jail cell run by the federal government, because it was the district attorney appointed by the Justice Department. I mean, really? Yeah. Stewart says that's the kind of thing we'd expect from Hoover Chavez. Yeah, it's the kind of thing you expect from authoritarians who encourage conspiracy theories around them. So, I mean, I just covered that, this evening. It's shocking. So this is a story we're going to watch. We're going to watch the investigation about how he died. Is the videotape mysteriously erased of the suicide? Is the tape being doctored? Is the NSA responsible? Is the Trump Justice Department, who, after all, were the ones holding Jeffrey Epstein? So it would have been much easier for somebody within the Trump Justice Department to do this. But you can imagine a whole host of different conspiracies about what happened. We will have to see what kind of evidence is produced. But just I'll leave you with, think about a president whose first response to something like this is to retweet a conspiracy theory about a former president murdering people. With no evidence. That's what conspiracy theories are based on, just speculation. Right? Pretty amazing the times we live in, both in terms of the extent of what the evil of what Jeffrey Epstein did, and the extent of that network, and the kind of president we have when dealing with such a thing. All right.
What we need today, what I call the new intellectual, would be any man or woman who is willing to think. Meaning, any man or woman who knows that man's life must be guided by reason, by the intellect, not by feelings, wishes, whims, or mystic revelations. Any man or woman who values his life and who does not want to give in to today's cult of despair, cynicism, and impotence, and does not intend to give up the world to the dark ages and to the rule of the collectivist brute.